We begin in Ukraine, where President Zelensky has admitted that a lack of manpower is sapping morale in the war against Russia. He was speaking as new laws to boost army recruitment come into effect. Prisoners will now be allowed to join, and fines have gone up for men who ignore the order to fight. In a TV interview, Mr. Zelensky also said Ukraine has a quarter of the air defences it needs to hold the front line against Russia. Here's a clip of the Ukrainian president talking about the new law on military recruitment.
We need to staff the reserves. There are a serious number of brigades, which a large number of them are empty. We need to do this so the guys can have a normal rotation. Then their morale will be improved.
Well, let's speak to our Ukraine correspondent, James Waterhouse, who is in Kyiv for us. James, good to have you. Now, when the war began, there were so many recruits volunteering. What is the morale like now?
It's a very different chapter of this war, really, since the early stages of the full-scale invasion, where you have Ukrainian forces, which are thought to make up around 500,000 personnel, either fighting on the front line or in operations around it. You now have a large proportion of those who are exhausted, who have been fighting for the best part of 2 years with little to no rest. And then you have men either avoiding or fearful of the draft, being legally compelled to fight and join the country's cause. And so it's incredibly difficult for Ukraine at a time when we are seeing fighting in the northeast, in towns and settlements close to the Russian border, in an area where there is really intense fighting, which makes up more than 300 square kilometres. It's a real departure from the trench warfare we've seen after the year over the past 18 months. And President Zelensky acknowledges this. You know, he's saying that morale is low. And I think for Ukraine to openly be admitting that its troops are overstretched and struggling is a sign of how serious things are at the moment. And they are hoping for two things to take effect. Firstly, a controversial mobilization law, where it hopes enough men will be able to join the fight and slow that Russian advance. But it's also hoping that will be combined with billions, tens of billions of dollars worth of American ammunition and weaponry. But at the moment, it is a time delay that is seeing Russia take more and more territory, and that's only increasing the political pressure here on Kyiv.
Well, to that point, James, we're also hearing warnings from President Zelensky about air defences and their supply. What is it that President Zelensky is asking for from his allies?
You've just said it. I mean, its air defences have been top of the list over and over. He prioritises that over tanks, fighter jets, armoured vehicles, ammunition, everything else. But he's sort of really quantified his needs. He says the reason the Russians have been advancing in the northeast is because he has a quarter, his forces have a quarter of the air defences they need. And we're not just talking about protecting cities. It also means challenging Russia's air superiority, because they've dropped thousands of glide bombs from fighter jets, almost unchallenged across many parts of the front line. And at the moment, he is struggling to get what he needs in that regard. He also says he needs at least 120 F-16 fighter jets, which have been promised by Western allies, but as of now, none are thought to be being used operationally. So, you know, President Zelensky really sees this as a gap in his armoury, because we're also seeing people being urged to ration energy now. There are planned blackouts once more. Thermal power stations and water stations are being hit once more. It really does feel like Ukraine is less able to defend itself, not least when you look at the percentage of Russian missiles that are being intercepted. This time last year, it was a vast majority that were taken out by air defense systems. Now it's around half, and those that do get through can cause real damage.
James, thank you for that update.